Good day. I want to welcome everyone to In Conversation with Convergence. My name is George Evans, and I want to welcome you actually to our 37th consecutive monthly podcast. We have a great guest today, Glen Shields, and Glen, who many of you probably know or have at least heard of, right? Glen is the CEO and founder of GP Fund Solutions, and I would tell you, as I watch the fund administration industry, really a brilliant growth story, and very quickly on the high-end radar of fund administrators. As many of you know, we generally have some of our best clients on. And Glen, I want to welcome you to the podcast today.
George, thanks for having me. I really appreciate that kind introduction, and congratulations on your 37th podcast. That's pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, it makes, my father always said time flies as you get older, right? So it seems like we're a little over 3 years. So Glen, let's do this. I'd like to start with just our audience getting to know you a little bit, right? Kind of your background first, and kind of leading up to founding the firm, and then with the second thing you can do is let's give everyone an overview of GP Fund Solutions, and then we can go through some very specific subjects.
Great. Well, happy to do that. Yeah. So I've been fortunate enough to be working in the fund administration industry since 2001, which is right after I left public accounting. I worked for a larger fund administration for the first half of my career. I saw the sort of evolution of how firms focused on the back office, their attention towards it, driven in part by their investors' attention towards the back office. So it's been great to have that perspective of where we were, where we are, and where we're going. And in 2012, I started GPFS. I saw an opportunity to create a different brand within the fund administration space that starts addressing some of that change that we're seeing. And so since 2012, we've been an independent fund administration firm. We've avoided sort of the consolidation phase that we've seen over the last few years. And we've been able to grow at the same time to well over 100 employees, over 60 billion of assets under administration. We're also not only servicing clients in the United States, but we've also expanded internationally. So we've been able to create a larger geographic footprint. During this growth phase of our organization. So it's been really exciting. Really proud of what we've accomplished. And most importantly, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, terrific. I mean, it's been a great, it's almost a 12-year story now, right? And I think you started with a very small office in upstate New York, right? And which got big, and then you've broadened. How about for our audience? Just believe it or not, there are over 600 fund administrators in the market, and although I truly believe it's the 80-20 rule, and maybe even the 90-10 rule of where the industry assets really are serviced. But we always kind of laugh here at Convergence. When we started Convergence, and we're about 12 years old, there were 400 fund administrators. So the ticket to entry has been somewhat, easy for a lot of folks to get in the game. But I would tell you this, that probably well over 400 of them are probably under 10, if not 5 billion in assets under administration. So there's a heavy concentration at the top. But what I think we'd like to talk a little bit about is kind of, what do you think makes, tell us about GP, and what do you think makes it a little different? It's not just the run of the mill fund administrator, because I'm sure you came in knowing you the way I do, with a bunch of issues that you wanted to personally solve that you saw kind of in the fund administration industry, right? So take us through that a little bit. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah. I'll start that question more with sort of our client base. We're exclusively focused on closed-end private investment funds. So we don't work with hedge funds, for example. So we do focus. So we have focus, and that's kind of one of the key areas as differentiation between us and other larger firms, perhaps, is that we're able to bring that focus to our clients, and they benefit from that, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but really, I think a core issue that I saw that we went directly after is the corporate culture within the organizations that provide financial services tend to be challenging, a lot of turnover, uh, which leads to a lot of downstream issues, right? So a lot of IP walks out the door when there's a lot of turnover, especially about the client and the history of it. Just the industry itself is kind of complex. It takes a lot to learn the industry and all the nuances. And so if you have a lot of turnover, it's very difficult to build up that intellectual capital
Yep.
to bring forward to your clients, right? And so um, that was really a primary focus: is how are we going to create a corporate culture that attracts the best talent and then keeps them? And we really think about corporate culture from that lens, like how do we attract people and keep them? And that will in turn provide us a foundation really to service clients well. Uh, Technology is amazing, and can't wait to talk about that and what's changed. But if you don't have the right people using the technology, and if you don't have the people to be able to respond to the bespoke nature of private fund administration that have expertise, you're going to always be sort of playing catch up. And so I think our track record speaks for itself. Last year we were under 5% employee turnover. Every firm faces it for a variety of reasons, but it's not a pervasive issue at GPFS.
Right.
And we see it as an advantage, quite frankly, to being able to provide really good service. So
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then I know you're up in upstate New York. Now, talk to me about some of your recent expansion. So our
yeah, really exciting. So we've been in the same building for over 5 years now, and we just signed a lease to increase our size by about 13,000 square feet. Really, for future growth, we expect to be well over 150 employees by the end of the year, but also to create a space that encourages people to be at the office. We really like working together, interacting in a team environment. That isn't to say we don't have flexibility, or we are
right.
hybrid and people can work remote as needed. But we do really see some value in getting together and being in the same space. So we created a space that incentivizes folks to want to be together, and so that's something we're really proud of. We're going to reveal our new space over the summer, so hope to have you up to see it.
Yeah, I remember I was at the existing space, right, and
Yeah,
I thought it was great, but to increase almost 50% in headcount
yeah,
is a very big deal, and
hmm
especially how have you found you often hear in the big cities, like you're competing with fund admins that have hundreds of people, say in New York, and the attrition's much higher, and people are moving. Um, have you? How are you dealing with that war on talent? I mean, which people call it, and I'm assuming it's the culture you've created, right? As a big part of it.
yeah. I think some of it is the humility to know that you have a lot to learn about managing people, leading people, building a service organization, and there's not. It's dynamic and it changes as the industry changes. So do the needs of our employees. So we learn. We keep our eyes open for opportunities to learn to be better employers, better leaders, uh, providing opportunities to learn. As I said, a great team environment really makes a difference.
Yeah.
If people have peers that they can go to for support, whether it's a question from a client, or just feeling stressed because it's quarter end, and they can communicate with one another and feel like they're part of a team and not being judged. I think that makes a difference, and they're all little subtle investments, right, into the culture, into the people, training, and it's not one thing. And you just have to always sort of, at least I found in my experience, if you kind of keep an open mind about what you know about being a leader and a manager, and kind of can keep it fresh, it helps you adapt
Yeah.
to the changes, which over the last, as you know, George, you mentioned war on talent, or there's a lot of ways to talk about it, but the last 5 years has been a big change for everybody. And those who are paying attention and sort of trying to innovate about how they think about things, I think it helps, right? There's no silver bullet, that's for sure. So it's a constant investment and learning curve.
Yeah. And then where are your other offices exactly?
Yeah. So in the U.S., we have an office, as you know, our headquarters in upstate New York. We have an office in Boston, South Florida, and Minneapolis.
Oh, well, okay, great.
Yeah, we're really excited to be out in the Midwest. We have a great team there. And then in Europe, where we expanded over the last few years, we have offices right outside of London and Southampton in the UK, Limerick, Ireland. And over the summer, we'll be opening an office in Guernsey. And so, we do expect we'll continue to expand our office footprint both in the U.S. and in Europe over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and clearly you will have different challenges, right, in terms of attracting and retaining talent in multiple jurisdictions like that. But I think the footprint that you're building is terrific because it's one thing to be U.S. centric, but it's another thing then to be able to service in some of these key jurisdictions, which aren't small, some of them anymore, right?
No.
As tell me. We'll stay on GP for a little bit before we talk about a few industry issues. One of the things I've always been impressed with is some of the size clients that you brought in, right? I'm interested in talking a little. You talking a little bit, Glenn, about why are larger clients picking GP fund solutions, right? Because when we, as we can look at everybody's book of business and we can kind of see the mix of advisors and funds that they have. But to me, you seem to be gradually playing at the highest end of the market now, or the higher end of the market. And I'm curious why you think you're having that kind of success.
Yeah. First, I think we're very lucky and privileged to work with some of the clients that we work with, and we feel like we're sort of interviewing every day and making sure we're doing a good job every single day for them. So that's really important, that we're always sort of working hard to keep and maintain their trust. And I think why large fund administrators pick GPFS is because they are facing incredible challenges that can only be solved with a partner that fully appreciates what it is they're trying to solve for and the core issues, right? And so the core issues tend to be focused around data quality and the issues that come out of not having really strong data, weak record keeping, sort of disparate systems all over the place.
Yeah.
And at GPFS, we've always been really focused from the get-go on the quality of the data inside of our systems. And so that was always sort of our principle, but we didn't realize it would be a competitive advantage because larger clients sort of can't accomplish their goals with their investors unless they're able to produce good data, right? Fast and quickly.
Yeah.
And so we didn't have a lot of operational debt around data quality. So it enables us to respond to these rapidly moving requests from our larger clients. The other thing is that our service is, I think, more of a bespoke service model that sort of takes the best of technology with the best of white glove service. And that is a bit more of a premium approach to fund administration. So it's a little more expensive. And so I don't necessarily think there's a one-to-one correlation between fund size and what it takes to perform service, right? Because you could have a equally complex fund at different sizes, but firms with a larger commitment tend to be more comfortable with that approach of kind of that premium fund administration service, because they also recognize that if they don't pay for it in the fund admin, there's a cost, there's a hidden tax somewhere down the road if they don't front load it in fund admin.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that story is resonating more and more with mid and small clients, that they understand that, if you approach the fund administration sort of in that lower cost model, which is perfectly fine, somewhere along the chain, the middle or the front office will have to pick up where that's left off, right? And so it's kind of where you want to put the spend in the front end with your fund admin on the data and all of that, or sort of like put that pressure back into the middle and front offices.
Yeah. How, as you're growing, Glenn, I want to get a sense from you, kind of, without giving away your secret sauce, but in terms of growth, right? Like, how much are you focusing on emerging funds? How much are you focusing on taking away business from another admin? And how much are you focusing on kind of the self-admin advisor, right? Who's maybe it's time to outsource, right? Just curious, kind of your take on, and then maybe the fourth quickly would be, the organic growth you get from your existing clients, right? But just curious a little bit about how you think about the different spigots that kind of feed growth.
Yeah. Well, the best one, of course, is existing clients being in a position to win the next product that they're raising, right? And so, by without question, that's our priority. Historically we've focused on emerging managers, and we like that opportunity because we can set them up for success and kind of create a scalable back office as best we can.
Yep.
And so that's a very exciting client for us. But as we get larger and we get more recognition in the space, once kind of we hit that 50 billion mark in assets under administration, we're getting conversations with clients that maybe we didn't grow up with. So, and they look, I would say half and half, either potential opportunities to maybe replace an existing provider that maybe isn't quite fitting exactly what they need, or someone who's self-administered and finding that, as they raise products, it's difficult to scale their internal back office the way maybe they could do with a partner like GPFS, where it's a bit easier to kind of absorb that cost and scale. So I think it's about 50-50. We're excited about, either opportunity. Obviously it has to be win-win for both sides. That's what's most important.
And given your international expansion, right, it will put you in a very different league of prospect conversations where you can not only service them in the U.S. but in jurisdictions they're also in, right? Other offshore jurisdictions. When you think about winning a piece of business, Glenn, from say another admin, well, if you had to give me the top couple themes of why are people moving to you, what would you say they are?
Mm-hmm. I think it is the thought partner that they might have a transactional relationship today where they're just executing on direction, and they're great at that perhaps, and then maybe they're looking for a thought partner, someone to bring to bear best practices, someone to contribute to the conversation about how to kind of plan for these demands the investors are. And I think that's something we're really good at. We bring that partnership mindset. In no particular order, I would say here. The second one that I see is data quality. It's sort of really they're seeing that operational debt associated with the lack of quality or dimension or context to the data that's coming out of the fund admin. Again, it's just pure play GL work. In some cases, we're seeing some really large firms that have the general ledger for the fund product on one side and the investor ledger somewhere else in a different system.
Right.
And merging those two data points is challenging. And so as they sort of evaluate that operational debt, I say, maybe we can go with a firm that focuses on that and sort of brings data together, makes it easier for us to, I don't know, get information for the new marketing rule, for example,
Yeah.
and do the new IRR calculation.
And listen, we relate very closely to your point about content is king, right? And
Mhm.
data quality is king, right? I think back we have put our focus initially on kind of we would say the steak, not the sizzle, right? Get the data right, and then what you put on top of it, right? It makes the job a lot easier. Last thing about GP before we talk about a couple industry, I want to certainly give you an opportunity to talk about technology a little bit. I know about um, uh, uh, your GP portal, right, for as a new SaaS offering. But could you talk a little bit about
Mhm. Yeah. So look, we're really excited about the tools out in the market. Um, we embrace technology as a means to kind of solve our clients' problems, right? And the the new tools out there, the data lakes, data visualization tools, strong GLs like AllView, and others that are coming out. There are some really exciting platforms that, if you kind of lay them all out and think about the architecture of how they work together ahead of time, or sometimes you're fixing the plane as you're flying it, obviously. So
right?
you're kind of working with maybe existing systems, and that's okay though, as long as there's sort of a kind of a roadmap to how it is we're going to get this data coming out of a spigot in an organized way so that it's useful and so our clients can. We don't necessarily even have to serve it up to them, in any particular way, other than to say it's all here, it's quality, it's relational. You can kind of see the relationship between all the data points. That's what technology is enabling us to do. Something it would have been much harder to do. I think the primary tool was, your general ledger in Excel for a good part of the industry's life here. So these new tools are really exciting. We embrace them. As you mentioned, our affiliate company, GP Enterprise Solutions, GPES.com, built a SaaS product for clients that don't have an investor portal or are looking for something different, or a data room for launching their new products. And we see that as a affiliate that can help clients sort of exclusively on the SaaS side, whether that's partnering with a firm like Passthrough, which we recently did. We built a bridge between our portal and Passthrough.
Yeah.
And so we're really excited about the investment in technology that the entire industry is making and how it can make our services at GPFS better.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Listen, I think the affiliate you have gives you um, a really interesting differentiator in the market, where you kind of have this engine of talent that can help clients, right, work
Mhm.
with you, right, and um, one or two other things on the industry, right, itself, the fund admin industry. Um, you know, how are you finding things like uh, we talked, you still see advisors doing shadow record keeping, and you wonder why. Sometimes I think we still see this race to the bottom for price, and people are just kind of playing other admins are kind of playing the scale game. Um, you
Mhm.
know, how are you? I think I know the answer, but how are you dealing with kind of those kind of issues in the market, Glenn?
Yeah. It is difficult to, we don't have a sales team, right? So we're just really, talking about what our current clients' experience are and the value we perceive to bring, right? What There's probably a more nuanced way to describe it, but what I was saying earlier about the investment in your fund administration relationship and one that sort of works to resolve the quality of the data, that investment, which can be a premium, is to save on the costs associated with managing shadow books, for example. So if you have very highly talented internal people creating shadow books, you're really adding that cost on to the fund admin, maybe savings because there's maybe a scaled approach to pricing,
Yeah.
and you sort of are paying for it and you're probably not even getting exactly what you want, even when you do that.
Right.
So, and that can be really frustrating. So, our job, as challenging as it is to express how important it is to build that collaborative relationship, so that you can kind of future proof that cost. And I think large fund administration firms at scale that are kind of doing the price war thing have a place, but I think it's important to recognize the limits of that. If you're not going to put the money there, it's going to come from somewhere else, either internal talent in the middle or front office that's already very busy,
Yeah.
or some other back office investment internally, or supplementing with another firm. So there's somewhere along the line the price needs to be paid, if you will.
Right.
And so, we have to do a better job at talking about that so that it's we can make the upfront investment because it's better for everybody. It's actually a savings,
No,
really, when you think.
listen, the old saying, "You get what you pay for," right? Like it's, I think, very true. And listen, as I think about it, as you know, I've been around this industry an awfully long time, and I really feel like your focus, Glenn, is on the right pieces, right? The culture, the talent acquisition, and the preservation of that talent, the global expansion, the investment in technology, and kind of growing kind of very deliberately, right? Meaning, you're
Very much so.
doing the right business, that the business that's a good fit, the business that you can service well and build great partnerships with. I think it's been kind of fun to watch the last few years because you really, I think, are making a lot of very smart kind of moves on the chessboard from my perspective, right? I'm sure, and
Well, thanks.
and
And thanks for always being willing to give me some advice off the record too. I appreciate it. It's been helpful.
well, thank you. Well, I won't go there now because this is all on the record, right?
Fair enough.
But yes, and you're welcome. And I think you've been obviously a really good partner of Convergence for an awfully long time. I want to finish with a couple things on the industry, right, itself,
Sure.
and let's kind of start with just the SEC agenda, right? And if I think at last count, last year there were 50, 50 different discussions going on about SEC changes. But I want your take on the private fund advisor rule and how that has impacted you and your business, and how you think about that.
Sure. Yeah. The rules that came out over the summer uh, brought some significant changes, brought attention to the work that we do in a different way. Um, I think largely our clients embrace getting better around financial reporting and record keeping and quarterly reporting and such. So I think in general, the industry was uh, ready for change around some of the reporting. Some of the specifics, obviously are being challenged and discussed in detail. But I think in general, these rules highlighted the importance of the back office to the extent that wasn't necessarily a priority in a particular firm, or maybe emerging manager didn't realize how significant the back office is as a component of the overall firm. I think these new rules brought that forward, and so I think that's good. I think directionally we're heading that way either way. So, but it's good to be reminded how seriously this SEC is taking these rules, and collaborating with your fund admin, your internal team to really make sure you got it dialed in.
Yeah,
Right?
and really, right at the end of the day, it all comes down to protecting the investor, right? And
Right.
I think to me, we talked at the very beginning of this conversation of the over 600 fund admins. I certainly
Mm-hmm.
think there's a large number of fund admins who've had to kind of stand up and look in the mirror and talk about what they really bring to the table, and how they're what they've built in terms of middle and back office service offerings, right? How they're going to comply, right, with this.
I think that's right. Um, I think one of the advantages, there's several fund admin firms who have been in the business for a long time, and they've invested in understanding their clients and their clients' clients, and they've seen the change and the expectation change, both from an investor perspective and a regulatory perspective. And so there's been this inertia to make these investments in the back office and the middle office.
Yeah.
And so firms that are coming in a little late maybe not appreciate how important some of these elements are, and maybe have underinvested in certain areas that help address
Right.
these new demands.
And,
Right. And
it's
so
a catch-up game now, right, for a lot.
a little bit, yeah. So I think that comes down to one of the things that we've also seen a trend around the diligence that our investors and their investors are taking with working with vendors, right? And so we see a higher, sort of due diligence around vendor selection. We welcome it, right? We're thrilled. If you want to do a deep dive on us, let's go through it so that you can feel comfortable on the other side. You've made a good decision.
Yeah.
And I think we see a lot of our clients, whether it's IT vendors or other experts in the field, they're definitely spending time on that upfront investment, getting to know the vendor, and I think that's smart.
No, I do too. And the old days used to be, everybody had just a list of here's the top 10, and if you went, the old, it never hurt to do. You're not going to get in trouble doing business with IBM, right? Like it was, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of that, and I think that's changed a lot. And the other thing I think that's interesting, and I think it impacts your business in a very positive way. We continue to see great growth, like, and I'll just say down market, and meaning when we start to look at where these new funds are going, or where these admin switches are going, they're not, it's not being dominated like it was by, say, the top 10, right, anymore. Right. And I think a lot of it ties into the culture and the service model, and the white glove service, right, that you talk about, that people expect, right? One more thing on the SEC, just quickly, and not to get too technical, but the SEC Rule 2064-1, the marketing rule. Just wanted to get your quick take on that from your wearing your admin hat.
Yeah. So this is incredibly important to get right, and I'm very fortunate to work with clients that have had an appreciation for constructing both levered and unlevered IRR. So even though the rule or the FAQ clarified how the SEC looks at it, the ability to introduce it into their marketing materials wasn't as significant of a lift. There was a few where there was a bit of work to do, but in general, they were tracking this data, which is great. The question now becomes, do they track it inside a spreadsheet that the front office and middle office have to track, or do they partner with their fund admin to produce these levered and unlevered IRRs easily and dynamically across products, across the firm. And so that's where we want to be, and we try to be with our clients, is that we want to work with the data architecture so that it can produce this dynamic IRR information without a lot of pain
Yeah.
and without shadow records. Because shadow records come in different forms. There's the GL shadow records. There's also the performance shadow records. If they really should actually be in one place to be really effective. And so it's been a nice opportunity to talk to our clients about, okay, so how are we tracking these nuanced calculations? How can we be
Yeah.
helpful? And it's again, it's always challenging when you're doing it under a time pressure or
Right.
because the SEC requires it. But 6 months from now, I think people will feel, okay, good. We've got our footing here, and we're solid in terms of how we're going to continually maintain this. So it's one thing to produce it for a PPM, but it's another to maintain these on a regular basis and produce them, on demand. And that's really what the opportunity is for us, is to kind of present
Yeah, I
that to our
mean,
clients, which we're excited.
oversimplifying it, it just creates another partnering opportunity for you, and when you, and,
Exactly.
and what I see clearly happening in the fund admin space is um, more and more bundling of other services with pure fund administration, right? Like we see, people buying compliance firms and cyber firms and
Mm-hmm.
managed IT and outsourced CCO and CFO, and the list goes on and on. And you just have to kind of figure out what's the right mix that to support your client base, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's changing um, almost every day, how people think about that. So listen, we are out of time, unfortunately. I looked very much forward to seeing you today, and I want to thank you for a great conversation. As always, I think your story is brilliant. Really, I think it's really been almost a real case study to watch in terms of some of the decisions you're making, and some of the success you're having, and not without its blemishes, and
Of
right,
course, it happens.
but it's been a really a good story. And then, as always, I just want to thank you for being a great client of the firm, and we look forward to working with you for the foreseeable future. So we wish it continued success.